Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to another episode of GitOps Guide to the Galaxy. I am joined by my shirt twin and fellow teammate, Christian Hernandez. Christian, we have a special guest today.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Thank you. And actually, this was an accident for those of you watching. We actually didn't coordinate
we did not
wearing this shirt. So cool. Yeah. So we do have a special guest. I've been lining them up. A lot of cool special guests. We have another one here, Dan Garfield from Codefresh. Dan, I'll let you introduce yourself, and then we'll get to talking about a lot of cool stuff that's happening in the GitOps world.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks again for making it happen. Excited to do it. For those that don't know me, my name is Dan Garfield. I'm the co-founder and chief open source officer of Codefresh. And if you're wondering, the acronym is COSO, but I like to call it SOSO. SOSO feels better.
Yeah, more humble, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's right. My background, I was a full stack engineer for a number of years, and then spent a lot of time on the comm side of things and done a lot of evangelism work. Google developer expert and member of the Forbes Technology Council, and basically just want an excuse to talk about GitOps, talk about DevOps, talk about delivering software. Probably my favorite thing to do in the world is go to conferences and talk to people in the hallways.
Yeah,
just where you get the real meaty, uncensored, unplanned stuff. That's my favorite.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, definitely. That's why kind of excited to have Dan here. He said, hey, what should I do to prepare? And I would say we never do. But we like to keep this as a as a hallway track feel, much more less of a webinar and more talk showy.
I like to tell people that you have a general idea of what we're doing.
I do have a general idea. So I do have a rough outline, but I never mind deviating. So Dan is actually also part of the GitOps Working Group, right? And so Dan, you're a co-chair, I believe. You're one of the co-founders as well for the GitOps Working Group. Can you talk to us a little bit about like the why of the GitOps Working Group? Like we had Scott on before, we kind of talked about it a little bit, but I still don't think people understand what we're trying to do with the GitOps Working Group. So can you talk a little bit about like how all that came about?
Yeah, so a lot of people know that GitOps as a concept came out of Weaveworks a few years ago, and the idea was really simple. You wanted to have you wanted to build on the ideas of infrastructure as code and kind of codify where to go with it. And what we saw happening over the last few years is this term GitOps. People were like, oh, I really like that. I really like this idea of like, I'm doing operations by pull requests. I'm doing operations through Git. And that feels like a good pattern. I'm embracing the infrastructure as code stuff. And what we found really quickly is that GitOps was like spreading out suddenly. And people were like talking like, oh, I'm doing GitOps. Oh, like I'm doing GitOps. I'm not doing GitOps. And then people were like, well, I do a Git commit and then something gets deployed, 3 days later, I'm clearly doing GitOps. And it's like, well, maybe, maybe we should talk about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
we should have a discussion.
I don't know. Yeah.
So the just like kind of funny backstory. I was talking with my team and somebody on the team suggested that we start this consortium around GitOps. And so I started talking to a few people and I was like, yeah, we could start this thing. This would be really cool. And I was like, I should probably talk to Weaveworks since they like did invent the term.
Yeah.
And I reached out and I was like, hey, I'm starting this consortium. We want to do da-da-da-da. And it was Daniel Litzo from Weaveworks. And he was like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. So we actually have 5 people signed on already. Will you be the 6th? And I was like,
so there you go.
So I'll just merge into what you're already doing.
Yeah, cool.
So it was like, okay, this is perfect. We had the same goals in mind.
Exactly.
So it was way more effective because they'd already recruited GitHub and Azure. AWS was already signed on. So it was like, oh, well, this is perfect. Like we were just starting to talk to those people. And so we kind of coalesced around that. And in terms of mission, we want to set a really clear standard for what GitOps is, a really clear definition. And I kind of take this as a learning a little bit from DevOps, where DevOps has come to mean like a lot of things. Like you know the old joke, what's the difference between IT and DevOps? It's about 150K a year.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, it's funny because you do see it like, well, DevOps is a practice. It's not necessarily a position, but you see DevOps engineer like DevOps on LinkedIn leader, for people. It's like, well, what does that really mean? Because so it's definitely has become like one of those things. Yeah, that's the big difference. It's 150,000 a year.
Yeah. So to have this standard that is like, no, this is what it means. If you're doing GitOps, these are the things that you're doing. It's not meant to be gatekeeping and say, oh, you're not really doing GitOps, but it is meant to set like, this is where you want to get to. This should be where you go. And so if you come into the room and you're saying, hey, we've fully adopted GitOps, and then you're looking at these standards and you're saying, oh, there's some stuff in here that we haven't been doing. Well, it's food for thought. I mean, it's not like you have to adopt it, but to get a bunch of companies in the room. And at this point, I think we've had over like 70 different companies participate in the principles formation and sign on as interested parties and things like that. So to get the collective knowledge of all these people coalescing, that's not only useful to give us a roadmap of where to go, but it's also useful for companies building products. Like AWS, for example, they want to make sure that their infrastructure is complying and can be managed in a GitOps kind of way. So to give them like the template of like, this is what it is, that helps them do that. So it's not just for that. It's also to create patterns. It's also create standardized ways of approaches to things, so that ultimately all of us should spend a lot less time reinventing the wheel. We should be able to kind of just pick up patterns and move forward and save a lot of time, ideally.
Yeah, I like what you said. Like, it's not necessarily gatekeeping, and it's not gatekeeping. It's not saying that, oh, I'm not blessing you in right? Like you are right. Like it's more of a goal, right? Like if I want to do GitOps, like, okay, what do I do? What standards do I follow? Now there's industry standard or a vendor neutral way of meeting that. Right. And less of a like you're out of the club. It's like, no, if you want to be in the club, here's what you do, right? And it's not like you said, Dan, it's not for everyone. People I've talked to people, it's like, well, we're not ready to do all that. And I'm like, that's completely fine, right? Like there's no right or wrong way. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like if exactly. Like there's no right or wrong way. If you like doing event driven, that works for you. You're not gonna change anytime soon. We're not saying you're wrong. We're absolutely not saying that. So
I always think of it like I think it was David Fincher who said there's infinite numbers of ways you could film a scene, but ultimately there's really only two, and one of them is wrong. So with GitOps and DevOps, I feel like there's infinite ways you could do this. Though we certainly do see a lot of ways that are like maybe not the right way.
Exactly. Yeah. Which I think is really great that we that the working group has all these minds coming together. It's really like a think tank, right? It's less of a club and more like, hey, let's bring all of our best practices and kind of just distill that. So it's really exciting to see, definitely.
Yeah, I had a conversation with kind of a, I don't know if you call him like a gray beard, like somebody that's been doing software delivery for like 25 years, and he was like, you GitOps people with your hipsters and your we were doing this stuff in the 90s. He's like, we had like components that were on the infrastructure that we're pulling and deploying. And I was like actually like pretty excited to hear about what like they had been doing 20 years ago and how advanced it was. And I kind of thought about it. I said, I think what we're really trying to do is what Henry Ford did. Yeah. Henry Ford didn't invent the car, but he made it so everybody could drive one. So we're really trying to take the stuff that you guys were doing, which is awesome, and distill it and make it simple and easy to adopt. And this is where we're going with Argo, right? And Red Hat's like a big part of that. This is where Weave is going with Flux. It's about making all those components just like turnkey and accessible. And it's like, let's just get it out to the masses. So it's really like distilling a lot of that old school knowledge into the new school, right?
Yeah, no, and it's definitely it's I always say that the GitOps is a the proof that all that stuff that you graybeards have been doing, right? I like that term. I'm going to use it. Sorry, not disparagingly, by the way. It's
it's lovingly, yeah.
It's lovingly. Well, we're taking all this cool stuff that you were doing as kind of like a be like, yes, like what you were doing is awesome. Let's take that to the masses now, right? It's like it's proof that it's not that it's new. It's just that we're making it cool.
Like, let's package it up and build it in such a way that it's repeatable in mass. Right? Exact same kind of principles as what's it called? Jeez, not supply line.
Supply chain.
Assembly line.
About supply chain. Assembly line. Okay. Assembly line sort of thing, right? It's like, hey, I want to deliver my application. Let's send it along the assembly line. This is how you kind of do it. And it's really like, Chris, like what you said, I always mention your quote, right? Is like GitOps is like the holy grail of DevOps, right? GitOps is that, like, right. It's like, it's what DevOps has been trying to do. And like, now we're in that place, right? With Kubernetes and software like Argo CD and things like that, that we're actually getting to that point where it's like, we can actually do a lot of the stuff that we've been trying to do all these years.
Finally.
So, finally. So Dan, I know that you guys, I've interacted with you guys, with you specifically, but with Codefresh, right? Like not even in the GitOps Working Group, but also with the Argo CD community. Can you tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing over at Codefresh? What you're doing with Argo? What all the what is it? Well, what's that saying? Like, what would you say you do here? Right? This is sort of cool, right? So can you kind of just go over what you guys are doing over at Codefresh?
Yeah. So we just as a philosophical approach, right? So like when we launched, 5 years ago, that was before we knew if it was going to be Docker Swarm. That was like everybody was talking about that was going to be the future, right? And it was still a lot of like
Mesosphere, right? Was another big one.
Yeah, Mesosphere was big out there. And you had what was that open platform? What was it called? I can't remember. OpenStack. Is that what it was? Oh yeah.
There was OpenStack. Yeah.
So it was like there's a lot of different stuff going on, but we know that like containerization, this is the future, and we want to make a big bet here. And within a few months, we got really deep into the fundamentals of all the different technologies. We're like, we really think Kubernetes is going to be the future. We think this is where it's going to go, right? And so our whole platform that we built in Codefresh is really built around the idea of building and deploying software in a cloud native way. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have customers who are deploying to VMs or building Android apps or whatever. We do. Those people are there and they can run the stuff. But the big advantage comes when you're using stuff like Kubernetes, if you're using serverless, if you're using those cloud native technologies. And so we would kind of talk about ourselves in terms of CICD when we started. But it's really become apparent that CICD is just like it's a term that's been completely destroyed. When people hear CICD, they think CI. They're like, oh, CICD, that's for building stuff. And so you're like, well, okay, like what are the deployment elements that you should have to be a CD? What does that mean? And it's like, well, you should be connected, to production in some kind of way, or have some kind of feedback loop coming from production. And it's like, well, a lot of CI/CD tools don't really have that. They're just, you have scripts that maybe connect into a deployment or something like that. And it's like, well, and it should be done in a declarative way, and you should have monitoring, and you should be able to do rollbacks, and you should be able to link up information, because ultimately the push and pull of what keeps people from deploying more often is usually about fear. It's usually like, I want to deploy more often, except I don't want to have downtime. Right. And why don't I want to have downtime? It's expensive and it's hard to figure out what's going on. And by the way, I have 1,500 microservices. I could have a regression in one that causes a bunch of errors in other ones. And I might not get that right away. And it's like, okay, well now that I have 1,500 microservices, like, I don't know what the hell is going on. And so what we've been doing with Codefresh is really built around solving that problem. The problem of deployment at scale for the enterprise. How do you know what's going on? And philosophically, instead of being an all-in-one platform, right? And I think OpenShift is a great example of like a kind of an all-in-one platform, right? That does a specific job that's like encompassing really well. GitLab has a very all-in-one approach where it's like you store your source code here and you do your deployments here. We kind of said we want to connect with whatever Git provider you're using, and we want to connect with whatever deployment environment you're using, and then we want to be completely inclusive about that. But then we just want to let you integrate with the best in breed tools across the board. You like Snyk for security scanning? Great. Plug it in. It's going to work great. It's going to be like a first class citizen. You want to use, Aqua Security? Great. You want to use GitLab? You want to use GitHub? You want to use Bitbucket? You want to use VS Code? Great. You want to use GCP? You want to use OpenShift? You want to do some VM deployments? Whatever. That's great. We're going to be agnostic about those things because we're going to be really, really good at that deployment loop and process. So what we've really been doing lately, this is over the last year, is we had this product that we call Codefresh CD, which is really oriented around like connect to an environment and send a deployment, right? So this is more the traditional CD tool. Mm-hmm. So competing with like a Spinnaker with like a harness, those kinds of folks. What we launched last year was our GitOps product, which is built on top of Argo. And really the way that we're thinking about Codefresh today is you like Argo, we like Argo. You want to get the most out of Argo. What if you want to do it at scale? Right. What if you want to do it with extra security and like, identity management and all those kinds of things? And what if you want to do it with support? That's where Codefresh is going to come in, and we're going to provide a lot of value on top of that. So we have customers like, we have a healthcare customer that basically has they actually have a Kubernetes cluster basically in every hospital. Really cool use case. They used to update these things. They didn't have a cluster before, right? But they used to have services that they would run in these hospitals, and to update them, somebody would have to walk in with a USB drive.
Oh, wow.
You can imagine it's healthcare, right? So it's high security, it's high stakes.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, it's like, well, we can't open up VPN tunnels to every hospital. Nobody's feeling really good about that. And handing the keys over to Codefresh to like, go connect VPN, all these things. Like, no, that's not going to be the approach. So what we've done is they've deployed the Codefresh GitOps agent, which is built on top of Argo and has some additional like tooling on top of it, into all of those clusters. And then they manage it from a single control plane. And so now they can get updates out, right away, immediately. And when you think about that with healthcare, it's like,
that's pretty cutting edge.
Lives, right?
Yeah. For healthcare, that's really cutting edge. Yeah. They're usually risk averse in terms of like adopting new technology for obvious reasons, right? And that's great. So Codefresh sounds like the glue, right? That essentially, it's like, hey, you have a Kubernetes cluster, that's cool. You have, a build process, that's cool. Hey, let us help you glue the bridge that gap together.
And to give you an example, like maybe I can even share my screen for just a second. I'll show you.
Yeah, for sure. We love it's a show and tell. We love it. We love seeing it.
This is actually Codefresh production.
Look at that. Nice.
So this is you're actually looking at how we use Codefresh to deploy Codefresh. That way I'm not scared of like showing customer data or something.
Yeah. Dog fooding, right?
See,
definitely.
So today to production, we've had 3 deployments that have happened. You can see how many deployments were happening, over in a given time period. And one of the things you can do is like, if you were looking at a regression, you could actually drill down and be like, I want to see all the deployments that happened during this time frame. Because this is when my regression started, and you can see all those. And once you do, you can see like, okay, not only do I see like the commits and the pull requests and what services were actually updated, but I can actually jump straight into the Jira issue and like see what issue was being solved with this deployment. And so when you're trying to track down, like, okay, I've got 1,500 microservices, I have a regression, something is happening. Okay, it started during this time period. Okay, I can see 3 deployments happen during that time period. One of these Jira tickets is very much related to the thing that's currently not working well. Okay, now I can kick in and do a rollback or narrow down the issue very quickly. So this gives people a lot more confidence to be able to like drill down into like, what the potential issue might be.
Mm-hmm.
And then for our other, like, I would think that for other customers and things like that, where they have lots of deployments, lots of environments. You think about somebody that has, 1,500 clusters that are maybe in edge locations, maybe they're in VPCs or whatever, to be able to basically get the roll-up view all at once of what's happening and drill down into that. That just brings a ton of confidence. And you could take like Argo CD as an open source product, right? So you could go take that open source and then just install it on 1,500 clusters. But then it gets really hairy trying to manage it and trying to manage
that fleet. Yeah.
How do you manage the 1,500 individual special stuff?
The Argos. I don't know what you would. I'm still on the fence of what we call that. Argonians. I guess Argonauts, right?
Argonauts. Argonauts.
This is what they call them. That's pretty cool. I've seen also some of the projects that you guys are. So Argo, for those of you who don't know, is actually a whole project, right? It's not just Argo CD. There's other things in it. I know Codefresh has been heavily involved. Actually, you guys created the autopilot, right? Can you talk a little bit about the autopilot and what the use case is there? I think a lot of our Argo CD users struggle with what autopilot is trying to solve.
So this is really about the push and pull between opinionated and unopinionated, right? And so if you use Argo CD, it's actually pretty flexible. There's kind of some default pathing, but if you go out and you did a survey right now of people who are using Argo CD, very few of them actually have Argo CD sitting in Git. So they have Argo CD to manage GitOps of all of the other things that are defined in Git, but they don't actually usually end up deploying Argo CD with Git.
Right.
So that's kind of like, like how would you do that? Like, because it's like a chicken and egg problem. Like, how do you bootstrap that? So that's one thing that Argo CD Autopilot solves. The other one is a question of how should I manage changes across environments? And how would I create like multiple targets? And then how should I do that? Do I need to have different repos? Like what branching strategy should I use?
Right. Yeah.
So
that's always the question we get, right? Like,
it's always
what branching strategy should I use?
Yeah. You've given me an amazing hammer.
Right.
But like, what's the blueprint for the thing that I should actually be building? Right.
Yeah.
So Argo CD is like this great tool that you have, but it doesn't necessarily tell you exactly how you should do all that stuff. So Argo CD Autopilot is an attempt to do that. And I'll just show like, I won't give a live demo because we actually just updated the syntax and I'm still remapping my brain and I'm a little anxious about trying to do it.
Live. We just had a release and Chris Short knows this, that I was struggling with some of the changes that came. So I totally get it.
I know, like syntax is like the thing that always gets me, right? Like if I have an error, I know it's syntax, right?
Yeah, it might be in my brain, but it's definitely syntax. Yeah. So so you run basically repo bootstrap, and you only need to be connected to your cluster once for this. And what this will do is it will bootstrap a Git repo with all of the files and configuration that is for the cluster, and then it will connect to the cluster and then apply all those changes. And then from there on out, every change to your repo will be automatically reflected back into your cluster. So this allows you to manage Argo CD using GitOps, and also sets up a bunch of patterns that you can just follow. So if I look at this repo, you can see it's been a little while since I did anything with it. But in the bootstrap, you can see Argo CD is defined in here. And then this is actually using Customize. We are going to be adding support for Helm soon. It's like the most requested feature. But all the configuration is in there. And if I went into like my projects, you can see I've got a prod project and a staging project. And then what I can do is under my customize, I'll have my application, and my application will have an overlay for each environment. So I can make my commit to staging, and I'll have some customization there that's, specifying whatever image is going to be deployed. And I can have, changes made there. And so to make a change, I make a change to this file, which will push it to staging. And then once I'm ready, I basically push the same change into production And then I'll have, whatever customizations I put onto production. This allows me to move things from staging to production. And so this pattern is it's dead simple. It's really hard to mess up. And I think if you're just getting started with doing GitOps, with doing Argo CD, I would highly advise just starting with Argo CD Autopilot, because you get all that stuff for free. It just bootstraps it for you. It sets up the repo, and then you're just making tweaks and changes there. And then if your cluster is destroyed, you connect your new cluster, you rerun the bootstrap with a new environment, and it'll set it up and be running, without any grief.
Yeah, what I really liked about Autopilot is I always take elements of what everyone's doing, right? People always ask me, like, how do you do your directory structure? And I'm like, honestly, it changes week from week, because I see other people's repos and I go, that's a great idea. So some of the things like you guys, you had the bootstrap, right, concept. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. I like that directory structure of like the bootstrap and then like components and overlays. And I've actually, instead of using Autopilot, traditionally I've done it with Helm, right? Which is basically, it was just a wrapper around from applying all of these into the, but it's really just like an ignition, more like this is my point of entry of deploying this way. I like how Autopilot does just all of that for you. It removes me from having to write a Helm chart, right? Where I could just do, because I've been writing Helm charts for this, and I was like, oh, you know what? It'd be nice to have like a single point of entry where I don't have to write a Helm chart for every deployment that I have.
Right. Well, and it even like a nice component here. So you can see, like, if you're creating an application, you specify the source of that application as a Git repo. So what do we have here? You have basically a Git repo for each application. And then you have a Git repo for your infrastructure, where maybe all of those applications come in and all the configuration is all in one infrastructure repo. So that makes it very simple. It's like a 2 repo approach. So I'm doing my changes to my application, and this is basically triggering. You would want to maybe introduce an additional process here where you trigger like pull requests off of application repos to your infrastructure repo, but your infrastructure repo is all set up. You've got, you're good to go. But that's what we advise most of our customers to do. And most of our customers are doing is like a 2-stage process where they have their application repos separate from their infrastructure repos. And that solves a lot of problems. That just simplifies things, and conceptually is very easy. Your branching strategies, branch protection is a lot easier.
That's always a point of contention that I find. And it's not until you do it that you understand why we give the suggestion of separating your code repo from your application repo. Because intuitively you want to have it all in one, right? Intuitively you want, my application has a life cycle, and the configuration for that application should move with the application. And actually your infra has a completely different life cycle than your code base. It's like a completely different, and most people use chunk-based development when using configuration, right? Infrastructure repos. They basically, do a what do you call it? A feature branch. They'll test on it, and then they'll just merge it into the trunk, right? Which is usually main. And then they'll just delete that. And most people are like, are hesitant to do that because they intuitively want to put everything together, but actually those are 2 completely different life cycles. Your application and your infra, completely different life cycles.
Well, and how many people have set their like Kubernetes, deployment configuration to just use latest or use something like a branch or something, just because of the awkwardness of like, well, use this image ID, which is to my commit ID, but now I'm going to make a change to my deployment, which is going to change my commit ID, so they don't match anymore. And so people end up maybe adopting some bad habits, and then you end up with latest. And now you can do a rollback. Now, if you change Git, it doesn't change your, it just creates a
exactly. You talking about floating tags. I'm completely against floating tags as well for that same reason, right? Like having a prod tag versus the like an actual versioned tag is that goes against like the GitOps principles, I guess, right? The fact that you can't version the image because it's always pointed to a floating tag, right? Because I can make a push to prod and then everything changes all of a sudden. Let's see here. See if there's any questions. There's chat's been kind of lively. I've been kind of
there's
ignoring it here. I think it's just less questions and more.
We'll zoom in for any future stuff. That's a good comment.
Yeah,
and then
by the way,
the point of, hey, lots of plus ones for separation makes CICD and testing easier. That's 100% true. And this also makes it a little bit easier. So like, ideally what you've defined in Git is what's getting deployed, right? And if you're pushing a change in an application repo, ideally you're able to test it before it's merged, and all that stuff, gets easier for sure.
Yeah, no, for sure. See here, where are we on time? Well, we're doing pretty well on time. Yeah. Let's so Dan and I were part of the working group. Oh, by the way, our website just went live. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I'll put in the chat opengitops.dev here. Some of the stuff we've been working on. If you guys want to get involved in OpenGitOps Working Group, I put the link in the chat there. It's live. It's a great website, by the way, Dan. Again, kudos to it's someone
Thiago. Was the designer and executor on this.
Great designer. I just like the buttons. I always play with the buttons. I always like how they animate.
So
such a simple thing.
The thing that we need to do now is we actually had like 70 people. I think it was maybe, I can't remember how many, but a lot of people were involved in the creation of GitOps as a standard and have said that they're interested parties. But we haven't stuck their logos on the website because when they put their names there, we didn't say, and we're going to put these all on the website. So if somebody's out there listening, you're thinking, hey, we've been involved in this. We've been an interested party. We want to be part of this Open GitOps standard. Go open a PR and just add yourself as a member. That's like the quickest thing you can do is add your company as a member. And we can just plug it right in and merge it. And guess what? If it gets merged, it's going to be on the site. So
there you go. The GitOps, nice. Right? Dog fooding there. Yeah, and it's all in Markdown, so don't think you have to be a designer or anything. You can just do a PR against the website repo.
Super easy. Yeah, you can see the other ones that are there. Just copy that, plug in your name, good to go.
Yeah. So someone asked a PR to where Open GitOps. I'm gonna put
it is Open GitOps, open-GitOps/website. So I'll put it in the Zoom chat. Maybe you can.
Yeah. I put it. I'll copy paste that in there. Cool.
Oh yeah, you got it.
Yeah. So
just /website is the repo.
Yeah, you can see all of our repos there. The website is the one for the website intuitively. So, cool. So yeah, so we're so we were part of the working group that is driving Open GitOps. We actually have an event coming up. So we actually have a GitOps Con, right? The CFPs just closed. We actually got a lot of submissions, so I need to block off my calendar to review those. So those of you who submitted them, thank you very much, right? So we're in the review process. That'll take a couple of weeks because there's been a lot. So Dan, I know you've been, you have big things planned for GitOps Con, right? Right now it's a day zero event at KubeCon. What is if you'd like to share, if you can share, just some of the things that you're thinking around building this community, really building GitOps in terms of like GitOps Con. What is your vision? I've always during our meetings we actually Dan and I we talk fairly often, and I always see him passionately talk about his plans for GitOps Con. So I like to give you this platform to also you kind of talk about your ideas about GitOps Con. And
sure. So we've launched 2 new conferences this year. One is GitOps Con, and we did kind of a starter at EU, which is very cool. Which at KubeCon EU, we're doing this other one at KubeCon US, and this will be the first time that we've opened it up for additional sponsors. So several additional companies have done buy-in for Open GitOps for I keep on saying Open GitOps Con for just GitOps Con. So this is actually opening up to additional sponsors, and some of the community might be thinking like, well, what do I care if there are additional sponsors there? Like, what do I care if McDonald's shows up? Well, the nice thing about that is that it allows us to make the conferences bigger, and it allows us to bring in more people. And so what we'd really like to do with GitOps Con is potentially have it be its own standalone conference next year. And so for us at this KubeCon, we actually have a lot more people buying in. If you haven't registered yet, if you're going to KubeCon, and it also there's going to be an online version of it as well. So it's in person and online. So it's hybrid, but go and register for it. We want to get as many people there as we can. And this is a space where, we're really focused on Argo, but we want, if we have a standard around GitOps, Weaveworks and Flux is part of that. Right. And right. Maybe HashiCorp Waypoints is part of it. And maybe there are a bunch of different, implementations of GitOps. And what we think is GitOps as a standard is valuable. And to the extent that we can make it an open standard that everybody takes part in, we're going to make that pie much larger for everybody, and everybody can adopt it faster, and everybody can get more value out of it. And it's going to be great. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's not, we don't want to have like this centrally controlled thing. And this was like Kubernetes. The biggest value of Kubernetes, and everybody will say this over and over again, has been the API. And people have said maybe definitely. Kubernetes won't be a thing in 5 years, but the API will. Like it'll be plugged into something else maybe. But who knows if that'll happen. But that API is really valuable. And we want GitOps to be the same way. We want it to be a standard that is like, this can be long running. This is how you run things into the future. You have that pull versus push. You've got to define in Git. You've got versioning. All of these principles that we've been working on and talking about. Those things can be long lasting. So to have GitOps Con potentially become its own standalone event, not just a co-located event, but like 3 days talking about how to do GitOps and like pushing the envelope. Okay, how do we bring it to VMs? How do we bring it to these other services? Yep. How do we bring it to stateful services? And there's so much to talk about in deployment and lifecycle management here, that I think it could easily be its own standalone conference that could be really big. So that all depends on how many people register and the sponsorship levels and all that stuff. So if you're thinking about it, we'd love to have you. And I will tell you that the CFPs, and you've seen this, Christian, and Chris, you're on the committee as well. CFPs have been really good. We've got some really, really cool talks.
We got some hard choices to make. Yeah, it's a good problem.
You're not making it easy.
Yeah.
At some point, we were looking at like 5. We'll see if this goes in. Maybe I shouldn't speak about it too much, but we've got like a bunch of really big name companies that are doing GitOps at scale, and it's like, oh, geez, like maybe we can at least get a panel with all these people because there's so much to talk about. There's plenty enough for a full conference next year. So the day 0 event at KubeCon I think will be really cool.
Yeah, no, definitely, and I think you hit an interesting point that I wanted to make is that like we have just so much content that it literally can't fit in one day. So sponsorship is important. So we can make it a 3-day event. So that way we can have multiple tracks, right? We can have multiple speakers. We can include more people. We can have lightning talks. We can have labs if we want to, right? Like instead of just having these short talks, it'd be a great thing, right? So like, if you don't have to be like diamond level, you can pitch in sandwiches, you can you can do your company doesn't have to drop in on you can provide coasters maybe, I don't know, but
I think it'll be a really cool networking opportunity to like a chance to meet people if you're comfortable coming to LA. I think there'll be a lot of like in-person benefits that we'll try to replicate online as best we can, but we all know that we kind of can't.
Exactly.
Best effort.
And I'd also say to all the people in the chat, I see some people making suggestions about stuff that they'd like to see. You've got 3 of the committee members here. Like blow up the chat with the stuff that you want to see at the conference, and we'll do our best. Right.
Like it's going to be a hybrid event, and we're having the same thing going on with the Kubernetes Contributor Summit, right? Like it's hybrid. We kind of know how we're going to do it, but it really like. I might have to get there a day early so we can spend Sunday actually testing to see if we can actually do it. Right. Like it's pretty wild. Trust me, like this, like doing event streaming stuff, like we need to make sure it's as good as possible for y'all. So like I'd love to
well, people have been reaching out to me like, oh, I'm in Europe, but I really want to be involved. Right. And I want to do it virtually. I'm like, dude, doing it virtually, we'll try our best really hard to make it as inclusive and as fun as possible. I know there's a ton of content out there. What I like about having like an actual GitOps con is that like separate from KubeCon is that KubeCon day 0 events are now becoming, it's like hard to attend
Well, now
everything
there's
that
day
you want to.
-1, there's day 0, and
exactly.
And
Well,
day
because
0
like
is full of stuff. Day -1's full of stuff. Yeah.
Like I want to attend the Spinnaker one, but that's at the same time as this other one, and it's like, well, which one do I attend? There's only one day 0, right? So even the Cloud Native Con, KubeCon, even the day 0 stuff is starting to get crowded, right? So the more stuff we got, more attendees we got, the more sponsorship we got, the more we can make the case for actually having a full event, right? And speaking of events, right, Dan, I know you want to talk about ArgoCon, right? Like we're busy, guys, by the way. Yeah. So why don't you talk a little bit about ArgoCon that we're supposed to be having? I believe at the end of this year, right?
Yes, and I'm very excited about ArgoCon. Before I say something about it, Chad is asking me if Codefresh is SaaS only, right? Yeah. No, Codefresh is SaaS, hybrid, on-prem. Go check it out. So I can't ever let somebody ask me, say Codefresh is SaaS only, right, without me saying no. All the things. Yeah. On-prem, it's hybrid. I'm contractually obligated to interrupt any conversation to
Gotcha.
Understood.
But ArgoCon, this is really exciting. We're doing the first ArgoCon ever. There's never been a conference for Argo. And if you look at Argo and like we've been kind of a competition between Argo Workflows and Argo CD to see which one gets to 10K first. And Argo Workflows is now at like 9,600, and Argo CD's fallen to like 6,800.
Oh, look at that friendly competition.
Definitely go star those repos if you get a chance. But there's a lot of interest in that community. There's a lot of experts in that community. There's a lot of excitement there, and it's growing faster than almost any other project out there. It's growing faster than any other CD related project that's out there, certainly is popular at all. So it's been growing very quickly. So for us to be able to host ArgoCon, and we're doing it in partnership with Red Hat. So it's Codefresh and Red Hat are hosting it. Sponsorship is open too. If other people want to come and sponsor, we want to make it open as possible. We're going to do it in SF, and we'll also broadcast it. So we'll have an online component as well. Currently, tickets are $99, but early bird pricing is available. You can get tickets for $20 for the in-person, and online is free. So that's if you haven't registered, go and do it right now. It's just search ArgoCon, throw the link in the chat. Okay. But this will be really cool. We'll have the maintainers there. You'll have a chance to talk with maintainers. We'll have some fishbowl sessions, and we'll also have a lot of people are submitting talks right now. We already have a lot of CFPs have been really, really good for that one as well. And lots of people who are doing Argo at scale. You want to hear from somebody who's got, a few thousand clusters under management with Argo CD. You want to talk to somebody who's doing, millions of Argo workflows, and even to plug in with like Argo rollouts and to hear about like Argo events, which is like a whole nother, ball game. There's so much going on with Argo. And then we also have Argo Labs. A lot of people don't know about Argo Labs, but Argo CD Autopilot is in Argo Labs. And there's some really cool data pipeline stuff coming up in Argo Labs. So like to be able to feature all that content, we really needed our own standalone conference to do it. So very excited. So far, the registrations have been like beyond expectation. So I actually thought when we put up GitOpsCon, I was like, GitOpsCon will be really, really big. And ArgoCon, will be a little bit smaller. And it's like ArgoCon might outpace GitOps.
Yeah, you're gonna have to call the hotel and tell them we're gonna need another room or something.
Yeah, we might have to expand the size and scope. It's been really, really good, the response.
Yeah,
I'm actually registering right now.
I have people pinging me actually excited now about like here on Slack and in the Red Hat Slack about ArgoCon. So
nice.
Yeah, that's gonna be really cool. ArgoCon San Francisco. I'll be there. Get the $20 one, because like even if you're not sure, because it's like for $20, right? Like it's, oh my god, you're saving yourself $80. Yeah. Just say you can that expense will fly under the radar. That doesn't even do a blip on me.
They'll be like, was this a lunch?
Like it's more like,
exactly. Yeah,
you're getting a conference ticket for this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they actually think they won't believe you. They actually think that you're trying to do something else. Because definitely get the early bird. It's gonna be awesome. Red Hat's gonna be there. Intuit, Codefresh, all the.
And I'll say too, the first year of any conference is almost always the best one. Like
always
KubeCon,
the best
the first year
Yep.
was like off the hook. And like
Yeah,
you're just hanging out with like, you're like, oh, it's like there's Solomon. Like he's just
exactly.
Like, he's chatting with like, you just get to meet everybody.
Beta,
And as the project grows, like guaranteed you like next year, in 2 years, like it'll be a little bit, there'll be a lot more people there and it'll be more challenging to connect with people in a significant way. So those are always my favorite. Like KubeCon's almost getting a little too big for me now.
Yeah, it's starting to get there.
I mean, it's like a beast right now. It's which is why all the day zero events now are happening. Cool.
Make it longer.
Just make it longer. Pretty soon KubeCon's gonna be 3 weeks long.
Dude, that my company Codefresh was talking about like, hey, let's do an offsite at KubeCon. We'll do it like the week following. And I'm like, so you're saying we're all gonna work like 60 hours a day?
Yeah.
Or whatever. It's not 60 hours a day, but we're gonna work like a crazy amount for like a week and a half, and then we're gonna do an offsite.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't afford the marriage counseling, guys. I don't.
Exactly.
Reimbursed or what? But
exactly.
Like when I told my wife I might have to go on Saturday instead of Sunday, she was like, "Do you have to?"
Yeah, exactly.
And that's one day.
Catching up here on chat here.
Yeah. I'm doing a bad job of that today. So
yeah, who knows?
Well, Lee thought it was always just a managed service.
Yeah, so people are thinking. So I can see why
Codefresh. Yeah.
Codefresh. I always thought it was a managed service. So there you go. So it's good actually that you said that out loud. Now that you have it.
Yeah.
So our SaaS offering is certainly popular, but our most popular is our hybrid offering, where like we'll manage the control plane for you, but all of your components, your build components, your deploy components, all that's on your infrastructure.
Yeah.
That hybrid model has become really, really popular. So that's like the majority of our customers are doing that hybrid model where they have all their secrets, all their stuff is on their own infrastructure, but they have a control plane that they manage, that we manage. And that way you like updates are automatic and all those kinds of things. That's really helpful. But we do have people and banking customers and finance customers come to mind that are doing full on-prem where they manage the control plane themselves. But we've actually had customers who said, we're going to do the full managed control plane. Our security people won't do it. And they're like, well, we'll install the hybrid today because it'll take us 5 minutes. And then we'll talk about, you always have to have meetings when you're installing the big stuff.
Yeah.
And they'll end up like 6 weeks later, they were like, so now we're going to move forward with the on-prem. And they're like, the on-prem what? Like we just like the hybrid, we've already like everybody's adopted, they're deploying, they're managing, and all our security people are happy. So maybe we'll just stick with that. But we do have the on-prem too. So
2 questions.
There's 2 questions. You want to go ahead, Chris?
So what is a good container image scanning tool in conjunction with Codefresh?
I think I mentioned a couple, like Sneak is good, Aqua is good, Twistlock is good. I don't know if I have a really strong opinion. If you're doing open source, Claire scanning is pretty darn good and has basically has most of the same database stuff that exists in the premium offerings. So I would like start with that. But then I like any of those.
Trivi's a good one too. And then what is the type of CFP talk we're looking for at ArgoCon?
We definitely, I mean, and I think both of you are probably on the talk. I think you're both on the talk committee for that as well. Definitely end user talks. We want to see people that are doing really interesting things with Argo. There was a great talk. If you're not in the Argo community meetings that happen once a month, there's usually a talk that's given once a month or so by a different, end user of Argo. And like we had somebody give a talk one time about doing Argo CD air gapped.
Yep.
Really interesting.
That's possible.
Yeah. And it was really cool how they set that up. So that was really interesting to hear about. So interesting use cases, interesting end user stuff. And interesting doesn't always mean you're doing something like weird. Like I'm not I'm not air gapping Argo CD and dropping it out of the C130. So like, is it really weird? Is it really interesting enough? The truth is that even just a story about like how you got your organization to buy in, that's something that people deal with as a challenge. So just think about the unique things about your use case. And maybe it's a lot of scale. Maybe it's just how simple you've made it. Maybe it's how you got people to adopt it. End user talks definitely, take the cake. That's what we're looking for the most. If you have interesting projects you've built on top of, if you're doing some stuff in Argo Labs and you want to talk about like a project you want to get going there, we one time at a Helm conference have somebody come in and give a talk that was like, here's everything wrong with Helm, and
I think brilliant. Those are really interesting.
Those are really, always those good. Kind of those articles, like, no, we don't use Kubernetes was a really popular one last week, right? Like, I love reading those because it identifies areas where improvements can be made.
Mm-hmm. And the person that gave that talk is well known and really, really highly respected. And so the talk that they gave became the roadmap for Helm 3.
Wow.
So yeah. I will say, if you are going to give a talk that's everything that's wrong with Argo, I would say put a lot of detail in that CFP, because
exactly.
I really want to believe you,
Well, also the ones that are really interesting is that, like, I broke my cluster. I foobarred everything. This is my experience.
I argued my cluster to death.
Yeah, like those are also interesting. Don't think like it has to be a success story either. Mm-hmm. Like if you have this is what I tried, this is how it messed up, this is what I would do different, is always welcome. I think those are also insanely popular as well. So it doesn't have to be a feel-good story either.
No,
although we like feel-good stories.
We like feel-good stories, but like your demo can be a demo of something that broke, right? Like I love seeing people troubleshoot stuff, right? And so do other people, right? Like this channel is a testament to that.
Yeah, we have like
how many times have I messed up?
Yeah, how many? Oh gosh, not just you, but
we have a bunch of ebooks, right? And things that are like, how to do Kubernetes scale, how to do microservices scale. The most popular ones are the ones that are like Kubernetes anti-patterns. Like these are all the things that people do wrong with Kubernetes, and those are like way more popular. People love to read about that a lot more than they like to read about how to do something right.
Yeah, exactly. Which is always fun. That's also there's an old adage. What is it? If you want, like with IT people too, like if you want the answer, if you want an answer, don't ask a question. Post the wrong answer.
Post the wrong answer on the internet somewhere.
And then someone will come and like, okay, thank you. It's like people like bad stories for whatever reason. So here.
So Carlos is asking, wrong, like authentication is based on a single service account application controller. Too many people make Argo CD service account cluster admin cluster role.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting use. Well, there's also an interesting use case. We've here at Red Hat, we have the concept of namespace Argo versus a cluster Argo, right? Where a lot of people use OpenShift as a multi-tenant system. And so we have this concept of having, you have an Argo CD that manages this namespace and only this namespace. Argo CD, the name CD is what it does, right? It's for application delivery. So, it's, you don't have to give it the whole, the keys to the castle. Although I would argue that that's what you want to do eventually. But with people slowly adopting GitOps, I can see why they would want it. Cluster.
I like to have the whole cluster under management on a single component. But depending on what you're doing, right? If you have a huge multi-tenant cluster, maybe you don't do that.
Maybe you don't do that. I'm actually more in the camp of you, Dan, where it's like I just want to give. I have Argo. I want to know what's going on in my cluster. Mm-hmm. I don't want any drift anywhere in my cluster, so I'm going to
never.
Give it all. And also, someone says too many Argo CD instances can be a problem, right?
Because
then you have to manage.
You can have some sprawl there if you don't do things right. Yeah,
that's actually why people buy Codefresh, right? Is what I was saying. Like, I'm like thrilled. I'm like, oh, how many instances you have? Oh, you have 100 instances. Cool, that's great. How's it going? How's it going?
Yeah, definitely.
Let me just write up an invoice right here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, sure, you may want 200, right? You never know, right? So yeah, cool. So here's there's any conversation here going on.
Is there a link to community meetings?
Oh yeah,
for Argo CD. So, good question.
There's an Argo community calendar.
Okay.
that I'll drop in the Zoom so you can post it.
Yeah, got it.
This one.
Cool.
So this is all of the Argo community meetings. So this is like contributor experience, all these things. So the one that you're going to be looking for is the community. Where is that one?
You're gonna make me add another calendar here.
There you go. My calendar, I know I'm pretty sure everyone is this way right now, but my calendar, after adding all the calendars, looks like a Jackson Pollock painting, right? It's like all these colors.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. It's like, when do I have time? Well, I have a lot of overlapping meetings.
Right.
It's like Hunger Games with meetings now for me. It's like
pretty much. Yeah.
It's like which one I'm gonna attend more than,
which
more
color
than if I have
should
time.
I make the Argo
So
CD?
okay, so this is how
Orange.
it is the first Wednesday of every month is Argo CD and Rollouts community meeting. And the third Wednesday of every month is the Argo Workflows and Events community meeting. So depending on which one you're interested in, that's the monthly community meetings. And you can see it on the calendar there. So like if you don't want to go to the contributor experience is more about like project management, a few like discussion around some big issues and things like that. And then we have like a UX UI meeting that's twice a month. But the monthly community meeting for the individual projects are often the most interesting. You'll have somebody give a talk or somebody share an interesting use case, or there'll be discussion about the roadmap or, those kinds of things.
Yeah, there was a speaking of Argo CD rollouts, wasn't there a workflows? There was like a security thing, but it wasn't necessarily here. I'll put in a link. It wasn't necessarily a workflows thing. It's just someone expose their Cube API to the public.
If you
it's like
ever put anything on the internet,
someone's gonna yeah. By the way, you should never have your Cube API to the public. So just there's really no reason for it.
There's never a good reason for that.
There's never a good reason for that.
Never.
So I thought I'd share some of this workflows here.
Yeah.
It's more user error than an actual workflows issue.
It's not like it's not a bug.
It's kind of similar to when Kubernetes, Tesla accidentally left their Kubernetes dashboard authenticated against public. Yeah.
A couple other companies have done that as well, right? I remember at the time there was a rash of those that broke out. It seemed like for sure.
It's like all the Bitcoin hacks where nobody hacked Bitcoin, but they like
just stole somebody else's wallet. Yeah,
they stole somebody's wallet or something like that.
Yeah, it's just exactly. Yeah, it's like, you have your wallet private key in GitHub. Never do that.
But that's actually that reminds me of maybe another point of GitOps here while we're talking about it is the whole value of deploying more often isn't just that you get the value of faster releases and more features and you're more competitive. But it's also from a risk perspective, you're able to just patch things more quickly. And almost every hack that happens is because of unpatched software that's not only just been unpatched, but it's been unpatched for a while because their soft delivery process isn't good. So while the sexy part of GitOps is more features, faster features, our devs are happier, they're getting stuff out quicker, that's great. The biggest value I would say might even be just on the security side. Right.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, I always say that GitOps enables you to then do that DevSecOps. That that's another marketing phrase that's been out there is that bringing in security to that software delivery supply chain. Whereas now since you're doing everything in a single pane of glass of Git workflows, now the security guys can actually look at what's going to be in production. Right. So now you can bring that in and be part of that whole chain. So
I would even encourage you in the spirit of DevSecOps to bring them in as you're setting up your Argo pipeline to say, where do you need things to be done, right? For you to be comfortable and happy.
Exactly. It's like, where should I raise the red, ask them,
where should I invoke you?
Yeah, exactly. Where can I signal you, right? Where in this process? So we're at the top of the hour. Dan, I don't know, the next few minutes, I don't know if you want to tell people, kind of give you the platform, kind of tell people what you're doing, where can they reach you?
Yeah, some of the stuff we're going towards. So obviously, go register for ArgoCon, go register for GitOpsCon. Love to have your talks at both those conferences, which I think are going to be really fun and helpful. Where we're going is, I would say that we're building on GitOps in a kind of interesting way where we're thinking about GitOps, and I've just talked about the importance of standards a whole bunch at the top of the hour, and I'm kind of now saying like, and where do we want to go on top of that? So extending the standard maybe. GitOps, I'd like to get to the point where we think of GitOps not just as encompassing, you've defined all of your deployment environments using GitOps and they're managed in a way, but also in a way of all of your tooling is defined in a Git-oriented way. So like all of the policies around pipeline, all the policies around security, and where we're going and building is also instead of thinking about testing pipelines in terms of scripting, thinking about them in terms of policy that's defined in Git. And so maybe I don't write, maybe I don't have a step that says, do this security scan and here's all the instructions of how to do it. Maybe I just say, this security scan needs to be completed, right? And this is what it needs to look like.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so now I'm doing my build processes, my test processes, my deployment processes, all in a declarative way. And all of that's defined in Git. So I think of that as kind of an extension of GitOps, but it's also a change in the way that you think about how you build and deploy. And we've built a lot of abstractions on top of scripting. And if you think even like a makefile is like, well, I'm using a makefile. So, it's sort of declarative, and it's like, well, it's also kind of a script though. Like if you think about it,
it's essentially, it's like it's essentially bash, right? Is what you're doing.
Right. And so I'd like us to go beyond that and think of like, no, I have a policy that describes what is needed, and I don't worry about it after that. And that's true from a security perspective. And again, we're not a security company. We're going to integrate with every security company, but to allow you to give the definition in such a way, I think that'll be really interesting. What we're doing with progressive delivery is really exciting. Where we're going with what we're building on top of Argo rollouts is really interesting. How we're looping together and combining all the Argo projects so that it's almost like it's really its own distribution of Argo, and it's kind of hardened for enterprise, and it's got some extensions for scale and things like that, and then just tying it all together so that you have all the information. I think that's really exciting, and so that's stuff we're working on.
That's awesome.
Really cool. Really awesome. Really awesome.
Very cool.
All right. So I guess here, Chris, what do we have coming up in OpenShift TV here?
I mean, it looks we're done for the week.
We're done for the week. Sweet.
Yeah.
Look at you. You get some time off.
No. I wish that was the case. See, Friday is preparing for Monday, and Monday is preparing for everything else. Yeah. So yeah, the next show on the channel is actually Monday at noon Eastern. We'll be talking a little bit about disaster recovery and database disaster recovery specifically, which is kind of important. You want to have a plan for that if you have databases around, which most of us do.
Yeah.
So yeah. Dan, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Dan.
I know you're a busy guy and you've got a lot going on just like Christian does. So it's awesome to have you, buddy.
Yeah, great fun. Let's do it again sometime.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
All right.
Awesome. Well, that is it for this episode of GitOps Guide to the Galaxy. We will see you all in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Yeah, we'll have something fun next 2 weeks. So
someone is at the front door.
Someone's at
the front door. There you go. So you need to go get it. You gotta go.
All right. Take it easy out there, everybody.
All right. Bye, everyone.